This is the Mowrator S1, and we're gonna have a lot of fun today. This is a robotic lawnmower that uses four-wheel drive tank drive, is powered by a massive battery, and has a big electrically powered lawnmower blade underneath. Not only does this thing seem really solidly constructed, but it's got a lot of really cool technological features too. The most exciting thing to me is that this thing is truly four-wheel drive. We've got independent motors at each of the four corners, with each wheel being independently driven. When one wheel loses traction, all the power doesn't get bled off to that wheel. The other three wheels can just pick up the slack, which means this thing should be able to go through some pretty serious terrain. Unlike a fully autonomous lawnmower, this thing is manually controlled and controlled by a really neat transmitter, which we'll be taking a look at in just a minute. This thing's also got sensors all over it to prevent you from getting into any kind of trouble with it, which we can disable, and we're gonna have to disable for a few of the things we're gonna be trying. And it's got a bunch of optional accessories like a trailer hitch and bigger tires, which we will be putting on here in a few minutes as well. Underneath this water-resistant cover, you can see there's a massive battery. This thing's rated at 56 volts, which means it's gonna be 15S. Let's see what's inside. These corner protectors are kind of a soft molded plastic, and they should do a good job of at least giving it some protection if you accidentally drop it. This whole thing does appear to be pretty good quality. This carrying handle is nice and thick, and it's held in by these two big screws, and the rest of the case is held together by screws around the perimeter. Before we take those out though, we need to talk a little bit about safety, because this thing is almost 60 volts DC, and anything above 50 volts can shock you and hurt you. So if you don't know what you're doing with something like this, don't take it apart, let me do it instead. With that said, removing this top cover, we get to see a pretty nice looking setup. These are the 32700 cylindrical cells here, and this is the BMS control board. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff's glued in, so I don't think we're gonna be able to go in any further, but interestingly, I was able to take a look at the labels on these cells, and they are WTT lithium iron phosphate cells, not lithium ion cells. Lithium iron phosphate cells aren't quite as energy dense as lithium ion cells. These lithium polymer cells are also lithium ion, but they're a lot safer. They're both more stable in over and under voltage conditions, and they're more stable mechanically. With that being said, what really protects us in these consumer batteries are the internal protections. A standard RC car battery has no built-in protection. It's just the cells, the wires, and then you. Most consumer products have overvoltage, undervoltage, overcharge, undercharge, overtemperature, and basically every other protection you can imagine built into them, which is why we very rarely see problems with these kinds of batteries, and we often see problems with these kinds of batteries. Batteries like this protect you from yourself. Batteries like this don't. As you can see here, Mowrator is predominantly relying on Celastic to keep this thing water resistant. I don't see any conformal coating on anything, which is fine, though I do see some areas where they didn't quite get enough Celastic, so I don't think this is going to be fully waterproof, but they don't claim this thing to be waterproof, so that's fine. As you can see here, the main connector appears to be proprietary. This is going to be the positive and negative from the battery, and these are going to be communication pins from the BMS to the rest of the system to tell it things like state of charge, error states, etc. To go along with that impressive battery, we have an equally impressive charger. This thing can do 600 watts, which means it should charge that battery in a little under 2 hours. As you can see, it's got the same connector with the positive and negative and communication pins. We've got a cooling fan here in the top. Removing this lid, which is made of plastic, we can get a better look at that cooling fan. This kind of reminds me of the cooling fan on the new Hobbywing G2 ESCs, and it's cooling what appears to be a fully die-cast aluminum or magnesium chassis. This does say that non-professionals shouldn't open this, and since this channel isn't monetized, technically I'm not a professional, but let's take a look inside anyway. Underneath this steel cover, you can see we have a nice double-lipped gasket, and then we've got a plastic shield here, under which we can see the guts of the operation. Now, most of this is potted, but we can see a few interesting details. One of which is this exposed circuit board. You can see there's a couple of connectors on here. That's probably how they do diagnostics and programming for it. We've also got a couple of pretty large capacitors over here. These capacitors are branded JH, and whereas JH does have a website, they're considered to be a lower tier of capacitor. Capacitor brand in electronics isn't the only indicator of quality, but it is an indicator of quality. And on something like this, I would have liked to have seen a little bit higher end capacitor, though lower end capacitors doesn't mean this thing's gonna fail, it just means they chose to use lower end capacitors. As you can see, this potting compound is like a soft silicone, and whereas some of the components are partially exposed, that potting means you're probably never gonna be able to fix this if something goes wrong. Not that most of you guys would wanna do that anyway, but it is something to keep in mind. That being said, between the potting compound and this really nice gasket, I would say that this is almost certainly going to be very water resistant, which is good because people will probably end up charging this thing in than leaving it out in the rain. It's nice to see that they thought of that. Oh, and by the way, since this channel isn't monetized, the best way you guys can show that you appreciate these videos is by subscribing, hitting that like button, and talking to me down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. One thing I noticed while putting this together is this does not have any UL or even ETL certification on it. What it does have is something I've never seen before, which is this TUV Rhineland certification. You can see there's a C and a US underneath it. I looked it up, and apparently the TUV certification is typically a European Union certification that's recently been applied to US certs and is equivalent to UL listing. And to be honest, EU standards are usually a bit more stringent than US standards, so this thing's probably built pretty well. Speaking of which, let's get this thing plugged into the battery and get it charging, because I cannot wait to see how this thing moves. While that battery's charging, I want to take a closer look at one of these drive motors. Hopefully we can get this thing out of here. It looks like the wiring goes up under this main cover, so let's get this removed, which will give us a closer look at the electronics and hopefully allow us to get this motor out as well. Unfortunately, as you can see here, all we have is the tire, not the actual hub motor. I tried to take that thing apart, and it clearly is not designed to be worked on. As you can see, I was able to get the lid off, and taking a peek inside, you can tell there's a ton of wiring. Everything's cable tied. We've got some big connectors here, and some of those large connectors are actually connected to the wiring going to the hub motor, which means in order to get it out, I'd have to de-pin those connectors. We can also see the main controller here. Interestingly, there's some thermal compound on top of one of the chips, but that thermal compound doesn't go to anything, which probably doesn't do any good. And around back, we can see there's a couple of main contactors, but I really wasn't able to get any further than this because there are things that are glued in and I'd have to de-pin connectors. The hub motors are pretty cool. They're made by a company called Hentac, and as you can see, they primarily make hub motors for bicycles. Obviously, these are specially made for Mowrator as they're not on their website. Those hub motors slip inside these tires, and we've actually got two different kinds. We've got these wide knobby tires and these more turf style tires. As you can see, as compared to these already very large MX-57 X-Max Proline tires, these are quite a bit bigger and should get some pretty good bite in a lot of different terrains. Unlike RC car tires, these are solid. I think these are made out of polyurethane. They don't smell like rubber, and they feel like they're going to be reasonably durable, though of course that's something you'd have to find out over the long term. Now, while we wait for that battery to finish charging, let's take a look at the transmitter. This thing's pretty cool too. You can see it's got a full color screen, and this is a touch screen. They do have you enter in a pin when you first start it up because a mower can be dangerous. Tells you how to turn on the blades here. And now, of course, it's not connected to the mower. We'll take a closer look at that once we get this thing up and running. For now, you can see we've got a bunch of different settings in here, and this touchscreen is nice and responsive. The sticks are recessed and feel high quality. You've got an e-stop button here, as well as the blade turn-on buttons. You have to push and hold both of these at the same time. This prevents you from accidentally turning on the blade. That's a fantastic safety feature for something that obviously, like I said, could be pretty dangerous. And we've got a speed control here and a few other buttons, but now I think that battery's finished charging. Let's get it in, see what this thing can actually do, and then go have some fun with it. All right, we've got this thing all fired up, and as you can see, pushing forward on this stick makes it go forward. Pulling back makes it go back. It's a little bit slower in reverse. It has tank steer, which means it actually uses the tires going in two different directions to steer. That means it can turn on the spot, which is really cool. And this thing's actually pretty fun to control. I've never really controlled anything like this before, and it does kind of handle like an RC car. Not quite, but kind of, and this thing is pretty awesome. But this is a lawnmower, so let's see if it can actually mow the yard. Turn the blades on. And let's see what it can do. As you can tell, this yard doesn't really need to be mowed, but yeah, it's mowing the yard. That was easy. Let's try something a little bit thicker. Yeah, it seems to have no trouble mowing thicker stuff too. That zero turn's really nice, means it can turn on a dime, and it's cutting the yard just like it says it will on the label. This thing definitely works as a lawnmower, but what else does it work as? To find out, the first thing we're going to do is have our lovely assistant try to ride it. Now, I don't recommend you do this at home, and I'm sure it says not to do this in the manual, but we have to find out. So if you'll just hop on there and put your hands down and hold on tight. Now, obviously, this isn't the most weight in the world, but let's see what it can do. Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, this thing works pretty well for this, but you know what? I think we can do even better. Because if you're gonna sit on a lawnmower, you need a place to sit. All right, guys, let's see if we can do this and be comfortable. Feels pretty good. Here we go. Oh, I've got my own mobile throne. Oh, this is fantastic. I I've never been able to actually ride on an RC car before. This thing will definitely haul me around, but the real question is, will it haul a Traxxas XRT around? Let's find out. In order to do that, we gotta do some work to the XRT. I've been doing some super secret testing with this, and as you can see, there's no ESC, and the spur gear got really torn up. This MMM spur has been with us for a long time, and I'm really sad it's finally dead. For now, we're just gonna replace it with this nice wide one I got on Amazon. But if you know what the best Mod 1.5 spur gear for the XRT and X-Max is these days, let me know down in the comments. And now I just need to reinstall the pinion gear and drop in an ESC. I'm gonna go ahead and use this Castle Cobra 5, and she is ready for battle. All right, guys, who do you think's gonna win? Put your guesses in the comments, and here we go. Oh, it broke. The bungee cord was a little optimistic. We've got some strong rope now that shouldn't break. Let's try this again. Uh-oh, yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Let's give it one more shot. Yeah, she's just not got the weight for it, and now we can pull her backwards. And yeah, that's kind of what I expected. A tug-of-war is all about weight, and this thing weighs about 35 pounds, and this weighs 120. It was always gonna end up like this. Let's try something else. But before we do, while we've got the XRT out, might as well get a couple of jumps in, right? Haven't run this thing in a little while. I think everything's good to go on it. Oh yeah, she still got it. Give her one more jump, see how this new ramp handles a big truck. Uh-oh. Oh, that was close. Let's try that again. Just about had a collision there. One more jump. Triple backflip. And she survives. All right, let's see if this thing can cut some brush. We've got some decent, tall off-road brush here. I went ahead and put the big knobby tires on and took the dust chute plug out. This means it won't be mulching, but we really don't care if it mulches with this. Let's see what it can actually handle.
Blade starting. Please ensure safety.
Gonna get into some thicker stuff here. Seems to be doing pretty well. This is some pretty thick brush here. It's struggling a little bit. Nope, there we go. It was just because I was trying to turn. It slows it down when it turns. And yeah, it really doesn't seem to care too much about this brush. Let's get into some thicker stuff. We got some thicker stuff over here, some taller little bits of brush and bushes. And this is some really serious off-road this thing's doing right now. And especially with these tires, it just doesn't seem to care.
Max range. Please return.
Doesn't like how far away I was. You can actually turn that off. You can turn most of the safety features off. But yeah, guys, I mean, this seems like it's doing a really good job cutting this kind of brush. Obviously, you're gonna need something a little bit beefier if you wanna really cut brush, but for just general tall grass, small sticks, little trees and bushes and stuff like that, it looks like this thing's gonna do just fine. Let's go ahead and cut through this. Yeah, it does not seem to care. This thing's actually pretty awesome. Seeing how easy it was to pull that XRT, I've been wondering if it can pull something a little bit heavier. Maybe my Durango? We've got this thing hooked up. This is on a slight uphill, but let's see what happens. Oh, not quite. It's burying itself. Let's get a little bit of a run up on it. No, it can't quite do it. Maybe on flat and level terrain we could do it, but we're just spinning wheels and digging holes here. All right, guys, I know what you all been waiting for. Let's get this thing unhooked and FPV it. And to make it really exciting, we're going to install this gel blaster, which we're going to try to remotely fire. I've never taken one of these apart before, but I suspect this is just hitting an electric switch in here. And this is a remote relay, which means hopefully we'll be able to fire this thing FPV, which should be awesome, especially since these things glow in the dark. Before we do that, though, we should probably make sure this thing actually works. Let's pour in some of these gel beads and go try it out. I've never used one of these things before, so hopefully it'll be pretty cool. Okay, guys, this is gonna be awesome. Let's get this thing wired up so we can get it on the mower. Okay, this thing's actually cooler than I thought it was going to be. It operates off a 7.4 volt lithium ion battery pack. And what we have here is a remote relay, as well as a remote control to operate it. And I'm guessing this is just an electrical switch in here, which hopefully we can tap into. Let's get this thing taken apart and see what it looks like inside. While I'm taking this apart, if you enjoy these kinds of weird, unique projects, make sure you get subscribed. I've got some really interesting things coming up that you're definitely not going to want to miss. And of course, we've got more cool giveaways coming too. Let me go ahead and pull the other 15 screws out off camera. Did I say 15? I meant 31. This thing is held together with more screws than anything I've seen in a long time. Now, hopefully I'm not going to get a bunch of springs to the face when I pull this apart. No, it's coming apart pretty nicely. And inside here, you can see we have the main drive motor, a bunch of wiring, but I think we're gonna have to go a little bit deeper to get to this switch. Hopefully I can get this thing back together. We've got some more screws to finish taking this apart. Actually, looking down here, you can see there are a couple of contacts that are getting pushed together. Those contacts are attaching this point here and this point here, I believe. Let's verify that. If that's the case, hopefully we can just put our solenoid across that. Off camera, we've got our multimeter in continuity mode, which means when these get touched, they will beep, which also means if we complete a circuit, they will beep. Let's hold those on there and see what we get. Yep, those are the contacts we need. Very easy. So in theory, we should just need to solder a couple wires onto these. Probably gonna drill a hole straight through the outside shell, so we'll have these sticking out. And now if we plug our battery back in and touch these two wires together, yes! Now the positive connection here is also the positive from the battery. We've got the negative connection going to the motor, but we need a negative connection from the battery as well, which is this wire. So we'll just clip this wire and splice our own in the middle of it. That's not beautiful, but it'll work. Now in theory, all I have to do is wire this up according to the wiring diagram on the remote relay, and that should do it. According to the wiring diagram, if we have V plus and V minus here, as well as a normally open connection going out here, when we hit the relay, it should power that from this connection. Relays normally have a normally open, a normally closed, and a common. You can see those here. It's pretty self-explanatory. Normally closed means the connection is normally closed when it's not activated and opens when you activate it. Normally open closes when you activate it. We want it to close when we activate it, so that's what we've got. Let's plug in this battery. Hopefully we don't let the smoke out. No smoke, that's good. And if we push this button, nothing. After a bit of head scratching, I think I figured it out. The schematic shows a bunch of wiring over here, but I didn't realize this jumper was also part of the wiring. It looks like it's part of the board. So we added that jumper in. Now let's see if it works. Perfect. That's gonna be awesome. For FPV, we're just gonna be using our trusty HD head tracking system, and we're gonna reuse the mount that I used for that helicopter. By the way, if you haven't seen that helicopter video, make sure you check it out. We had a lot of fun in there. And then to be able to drive the machine and the blaster, we're just gonna take the button for it and stick it right here on the back. There we go. That should be just about perfect. Before the grand finale though, there are just a couple more things I want to try with this mower, and one of them is seeing how much of an angle it can actually drive on. As you can see here, Mowrator says that this can do an 85% slope with those wide tires on there. Now 85% doesn't mean 85 degrees. Basically a 45-degree angle is a 100% slope because you're going up as fast as you're going forward. So 85% is about a 38-degree angle. So this ramp's about 55 degrees at the top, so in theory it shouldn't quite make it to the top, but let's see how far up it can go. These are the nice wide tires, which should give it more grip and allow it to go at a higher angle. And almost, that's making it almost all the way to the top. That's pretty good. Let's try that one more time. Yeah, that's getting almost all the way to the top. That's not bad. That should work on some pretty steep slopes. Now, before we go splatterball FPV, I've got one thing I want to retry. Because I don't think the Mowrator got a fair shake at trying to pull the Durango. That was uphill in the dirt. Let's see how it does on level ground on concrete. Oh yeah, no problem whatsoever. So this thing can pull a 4,500 pound Durango with absolute ease on concrete. All right, as you can see, we are full FPV now. We can see the blaster up there behind us, and let's see what we can hit. All right, here we go, guys. I think we're shooting a little bit above the car. Let's see if I can get down into it. Oh, I think we're above it. Ah! Chase it! I think I'm hitting it. I think I'm hitting it. Yes! Get it! Get it! I hope you can see this. This is awesome. Oh. Alright guys, as you can tell, this is pretty fantastic, but these things glow in the dark, so let's see what it can do at night. Now it is very dark out. As you can see, we've got the balls all charged up and glowing. Let's see how they look. Oh yeah, you can see them. Look like tracers. Oh, that's great. Look at them going in the woods. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Oh, I love that. Let's go to a tree. You can see him sticking to the tree. Oh, that is fantastic. Let's hit the back of the ramp. Oh, we're going over the ramp. Careful, we don't want to go into the neighbor's yard. Let's shoot into the woods again. Oh yeah, that's so cool. So what do I think of the Mowrator S1 four-wheel drive lawnmower? First of all, it's really, really cool. It's a lot of fun to use. It's got a ton of power. It feels very well built, and it's pretty versatile. I think it's better for serious mowing jobs than most of those automated lawnmowers. Those are really designed just to keep mowed lawns mowed, not really to cut down thick grass. Obviously, this thing's not gonna have as much power as a big gas lawnmower, but for an electric mower, it did pretty well. I also only ever charged it once for all the messing around I did, and it still shows 3/4 of a battery. This transmitter is very, very nice, feels extremely high quality. The mower also has cruise control and auto turn, which I didn't really mess with, but that makes mowing straight lines in large areas easier. And overall, this thing's very, very cool. But the question is, who is something like this for? I think if you've got an area you want to mow that's more dangerous, maybe on a side slope, it could really be beneficial there. If you want to mow your own yard, but you don't want to be outside, you could stand inside in the air conditioning and mow it. And if you wanted to have something to haul around a trailer around your property, this thing could work really, really well for that. With all that being said, it is extremely expensive, so this is going to be a fairly niche product. Obviously, we had a lot of fun with it in this video. Most of the things I did, you probably wouldn't do with it, but I think it gave us a good idea of what the thing is capable of and how it's built. It took everything I threw at it no problem, and it seems like a very high quality piece of equipment. Now, speaking of having fun, I had a really good time hanging out with you guys in this video. I hope you enjoyed it too. I'll see you in one of these.